unapologetic, unadulterated, and uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the superfortress of intelligent black thought. This is the BlackChannel.net radio program, and I am, of course, your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Glad to have you all with us here this evening. In the unlikely event that I do take telephone calls, the number is 646-787-1933. That is 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, although I don't know whether or not you're going to regret it or not. I've got a few things I did want to discuss here tonight. There's a number of different things I actually need to cover, and you're being forewarned about it in advance. We are the only place that can do this. You know, when you dance with the devil, you can't complain if you find yourself poked in the rear with his pitchfork. You really can't. There are a number of different folks who are going to find themselves in just such a situation now, and they're about to find out who their friends are and who their friends aren't. Now, this is going to be kind of I want to talk about gender roles here, and the manner in which your society is destroyed when you allow your dumbest, your densest, your perverts, and your deviants to choose your agenda for you. Now, in society at large, the gay population is about 3 or 4% of the population, depending on who you look at. And right now, there's a big push by that very small group to try to force everyone else to be open to sexual contact with them. And I bring this up tonight because, in case you didn't notice, on Twitter there's a hashtag. It's not really trending, but boy, these mentally and emotionally unhinged, sexual perverted deviants sure are trying to make it trend. It's Boycott Breakfast Club. They were unhappy about some remarks that a comedian made while he was on the Breakfast Club. And of course, these same people who don't boycott the police, this is how mentally and emotionally whacked out and psychotic these people are. They don't care. These are black folk who do not care, because there's no white folk helping them with this, by the way. No white folk are helping them. These are just a bunch of black sexual deviants. Haven't had a word to say about the president. Haven't had a word to say about police brutality. That doesn't bother them. Their world, to show you how psychotically obsessed they are, their world stops and starts with gay sex. Literally everything else is off the table. If it's not about gay sex, they didn't see it. To which I have to say, sexual perverts and deviants go that way. And there's just a number of different things I want to discuss here. I'm going to let you hear the offending audio in question, by the way. And we've just seen an uptick about this, and this is going to give you a new insight into some of the gender mismanagement going on out there. Before I do, however, there is one thing I did want to address here. I'm waiting on a phone call from a brother who wanted to discuss something that he's been working on. I had a few questions about it, so I think he might be on the line now. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get him on the line here so we can discuss that. Let me get. Is this brother Molly Morris?
Yeah, greetings. How are you doing, Brother Joey?
Okay. If you're on a speakerphone or something, you need to take your phone off a speaker because you can barely be heard.
Okay, it should sound a bit clearer now.
Okay. Now, where are you calling us from tonight?
I am calling you from Brixton, southeast London in England.
Okay, calling out of Brixton in the United Kingdom. Now, I wanted you to explain exactly what it was. You had put up a post about how you are helping black people, I think it is, to purchase land in Gambia. And I wanted to get some general details about exactly what that was about. Before I get back to the subject I was speaking about here tonight, I did want to touch on this very briefly because I did say I'd let you have a word about that. But what exactly, in general here, what exactly was it you were referring to, how that works?
Okay, so basically I've been going back and forth to the Gambia for the last few years. We set up a school over there, and now I've opened a restaurant over in an area called Kotu. So it's a winter sun holiday destination. So we're open for 7 months of the year, and then we close for the summer months. So in the summer I'm back in England, wintertime I'm over in Africa. What I have been able to see is the amount of opportunity there is for people who want to move over there, either to live or to set up a business whilst living back in either the USA or the UK. I've been able to meet brothers who are running businesses over in the US who are actually doing business with the locals over there in Africa as well. And so there is an opportunity where you don't need to have huge amounts of financial capital to start, but you can actually start something that can bring in higher rewards back to yourself and back to your community, whether it's in the USA or over here in the UK, and at the same time help those in Africa as well. So
okay, let me cut to the chase here for a moment, okay? Just so we can cut to the chase here. Exactly how much money did this require? I mean, what kind of businesses that you have over there? What exactly do you do?
Yeah, I have a restaurant. It has 70 covers, so it has like downstairs and upstairs, and it took me about £20,000 to do that.
Okay, £20,000. That's going to be over $30,000 US. If I get the exchange rate correct, it kind of fluctuates a little bit, but about $30,000 US. Now, I'm kind of curious here, since you're not open year round, exactly what kind of business are you doing over there? I wouldn't suspect Gambia to be a hot spot for restaurants and whatnot, but what kind of business are you doing over there? And when your restaurant is open, because you said that you're over there in the winter months, when your restaurant is open, do you have predominantly African clientele, or is this like African and Europeans, or what exactly is your clientele like?
Okay, so the country is a huge winter sun destination for Europeans. So our clientele are British, Swedish, Danish, Dutch, pretty much Scandinavian European countries. They used to go to places like Morocco, like Tunisia, like Egypt, but because of terrorism and so on and so forth, a lot more people are coming into Gambia now. So Gambia is a big deal. You have a lot of people going in there every year, and so our business really just rotates around there. 100%. Obviously, all our staff are local Gambians. All our people who are giving us the things we're buying for the restaurant, all our workmen are all Africans, and so we now have a staff of 21 people who work with us during that season, and then on the off season, we also send a small stipend to keep them covered while we're not actually up and running.
Okay, so you've got couple dozen people working for you over there. And exactly how long has your restaurant been open?
We opened October last year, so we've only just opened. We're still babies in the game. And the where it was, we have like two other restaurants who are in the same area as us, and our first focus was to ensure that we provided a better service, a better tasting food, and take as many customers away from our competition as possible. And we were able to do that for last season. I'm looking forward to building upon that this season.
Okay, now it sounded like what you were trying to describe before was having dual citizenship. Is that what you were referring to?
That's available, and that wasn't the initial thing. What I was really referring to was the fact that there is opportunities over there in the motherland that we may not be aware of. So whether that be things to do with, whether that's to do with real estate, or whether it's to just buy land, or whether it was to do something like moringa oil. There's so many things that's available that people can do that we may not be aware of, because of the fact that we're stuck in our little Western homes and doing what things.
Okay, brother. Okay, brother.
So.
Okay, let me reel you back in here, okay? Because before you specifically said before that you could have citizenship there and maintain your citizenship where you are. So that sounds like you are describing dual citizenship. Is that correct?
Yes, you can have dual citizenship. That is definitely a possibility.
It's definitely a possibility.
A TIN number.
And that is exactly
Absolutely,
the problem that we keep running into. Because every once in a while I do meet somebody who claims that they've got business interests in Africa, or they're doing something. Gambia is one of the countries that routinely keeps coming up. And sometimes people even mention dual citizenship. The problem is, once you start looking at the paperwork and the requirements for citizenship there, then you start noticing that there are some huge hurdles to it. And it's very rare to find somebody who actually has any type of holdings over there at all. So that's the real thing that I wanted to make sure I discussed with you here tonight. Now, I want to try this again. You mentioned before about having dual citizenship. Why don't you explain to us exactly what the requirements are in order to get that citizenship? Precisely what the requirements are. Not the forms you got to fill out. What do they require?
From my understanding, the thing that you require is to, you start off with a TIN number. That ensures that you are paying a taxable amount into the system over there. They expect that for a minimum of 3 years, at which point you are allowed to apply. So there are a couple of offices that you can go to in Banjul or in Kotu, or in an area called Brikama. That's where the main offices are. You literally fill in the form. They'll ask you about what your business you're doing. They'll check your tax status, whether you've been paying your tax and so on, and then they will advise you as to whether you're able to get dual citizenship.
Right.
Another way you can ensure
now,
you can
okay,
do that. If you want
brother,
to.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
You're going around the world here, and you're not actually answering my question. First thing I said was, don't tell me about the forms you have to fill out. Tell me what the requirements are. And you still have not mentioned what that is. What requirements? Okay, let's try this a different way, because maybe you're not understanding what I mean as far as what I'm trying to get at. In the United States, you can apply for citizenship. There are several different ways you can become a U.S. citizen. Assuming, of course, you pass the background check, there's EB-5, where if you got $1 million or $500,000 and you invest in an American enterprise, you and your family can buy U.S. citizenship. That's one way. If you marry a U.S. citizen, you can get your green card, and thus you are able to be a resident in the United States. Basically a citizen, because some folks want to argue about that, but you basically can get citizenship that way. You've also got the process of naturalization. And if you're from a country that they're accepting that from, even with the current administration in office, you can apply for that. It may take a few years, but you have that as well. There are also visas that can lead to citizenship. If you've got special skill sets, for example, there's certain visas you can apply for that specifically will help you become a U.S. resident if you've got certain skills in certain areas. They like doctors, they like physicists, they like engineers. Now, those are specific requirements that I just gave you. Those are specific things I just mentioned. So, one more time here. Can you tell us what are the requirements to become a citizen of Gambia?
You need to be paying taxes for a minimum of 3 years. Number one. Number two is you can marry a local and you'll be able to get citizenship that way. The final one that I know of personally is by opening a business there. And through your contacts that way, you can also find, just like how you can almost buy citizenship in America, you can do the same thing in Gambia. I do not know the ins and outs of that last one. But the first two, I do know that you would just apply by paying tax and then apply, and the second one you can marry into.
Okay, now when you say paying taxes, usually a person doesn't do that until they're actually a resident somewhere. So wouldn't you have to become a resident first before you start paying taxes?
But this is the whole thing I was saying at the beginning. So you can go and you can get what is called a TIN form, which bypasses that. And so they'll say, okay, since you're now having this tax form, you're expected to pay the equivalent of, let's say, £100 or $130 a year into their tax system, at which point you are then able to apply after a period of 3 years.
Right, and was that the method that you used?
Yeah, so this is now year 2 for me. So I haven't actually gone to the point of where I can actually apply yet. But yes, that's the method I've used. And because of the fact that I've set up the business, and as I was saying at the beginning, because of the school, it gives me a few things that I can put on my resume to say, this backs up my reason for wanting to become a citizen. They also, I've also been advised that I ensure that I have a good reference, a good referee from someone local of.
Thank you. Now, thank you. That was the part I wanted to get to. You saved that for last. That's not a minor point that you came up with at the end. You see, the problem with getting citizenship in Gambia is because it's notoriously a corrupt and nepotistic process. Specifically because of that last point you touched on. Oh yeah, you also have to have references from a Gambian citizen. Now that's one thing that they tell you. But the other thing that you haven't even mentioned yet is your references may not be good enough. Even if they are native-born Gambian citizens, your references still may not be good enough to get you citizenship. Because the government agency that oversees evaluating the references has a weird habit of turning applications down. Even if you get Gambian references. I bring all this up because that's a whole lot of work to have to go through and a whole lot of paperwork to have to deal with. and a whole lot of time to have to wait just to come to the end of it and find out, well, your tax money is good here, but we've turned down your application for reasons unknown. I've been covering this thing about Gambia's citizenship offers for years now. I have yet to know a single person who was actually able to leave the United States, go there, and become a Gambian citizen. I have yet to meet one. I do meet certain individuals like yourself who claim that they are in the process of. I have yet to meet one who says, Jason, I am a U.S. citizen. I'm also a Gambian citizen. Here are my citizenship papers. I have yet to see that. Primarily because of that last part.
If you ever decide to come out to Gambia, I will introduce you to a sister who was born in Queens, New York. She lives there right now. She has Gambian citizenship. She's been there for many years. So it's not an impossibility. It's something that can be done. And I would say that it was easier. It's an easier process than it would be for example, someone from the UK trying to get a green card in the USA. Because I've also lived in New York for a few years myself.
Okay. Well, here's all I want you to do, all right? Get me her information. Send that to me. Because here's the thing. If the information is accurate and if there's something we're not aware of, that's the kind of thing we'd want to know. Because as black people, we don't have the time to play around with send papers here, send papers there. I think you can do this as the crow flies around that window over there. And if you go back to the backwoods and holler, knock 3 times on this door and say yippee-ki-yay. We don't have time for that. Because and the other thing is, somebody in the chat room made a very good point. It's certainly nice to hear about, okay, you can open up a restaurant. Economies are not held together by restaurants. They're held, those are nice to have, don't get me wrong. And I'm not spitting on it. What I am saying is, what about the natural resources? That's what sustains a nation. It's access to be able to build and cultivate natural resources. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how much control do we have of that?
Look, if you want to do something like buy land over there, as an African American, you can certainly do that. So you have access to actual mineral wealth there and then. It's not like a difficulty. I already own land. I've helped other people buy land over there. So, and this is stuff that is transferable. They can transfer it to their young ones. They can send it down into perpetuity in their own family. You can actually own land there. So to give you an example of a size, a plot the size of, say, 50 meters by 50 meters, you'll be paying around about $5,000 to $6,000 US, for example. That is the kind of price you would pay, and that allows you to be able to put a small farm up there and a house if you wanted to, put your own hotel, something like that. Or you could just literally just grow food and sell it if you wanted to do that. So there is definitely, that's also, if that's what you're about, you can do that too. It's completely possible.
Okay. Well, owning land and starting farms is nice. That is. However, if they have things like diamond, gold, platinum, oil, things like that, that would be nice to be able to have access to, because we have a number that's going to cost a little bit more than $30,000. Obviously, that's going to cost a lot more than that. Here in the States, you've only really got multinationals that can go in and do that kind of thing. Plus, there's this extensive permitting process to allow them to even be able to do that. Is it any easier over there?
In Gambia, I believe it's not easy to do. I do not know anyone who's done that I don't, the Gambian, the last president wouldn't even admit there was oil in Gambia, even though he was doing deals. So I wouldn't say that was good there. Next door, you have Sierra Leone, you have Senegal, and there are people who are doing stuff like gold mining, diamonds, cobalt, coltan, aluminium, tin, copper. That is available across the border. But in Gambia, I do not know anyone who's doing that. So I wouldn't offer that information.
Okay. Well, definitely I think what you're saying is something that could be investigated more. Like I say, I still don't know of anybody who's been able to demonstrate that they were actually able to gain their their Gambian citizenship. I have seen some news stories of people who did get it and then wound up back over here again, because that tends to be an issue. I don't know how friendly the government is toward Africans in America or Africans outside of Africa as far as Gambia is concerned. What's been your experience with the government there?
The government they donated a huge piece of land for myself and the brothers of an organization I'm a part of called the Black Father Support Group, upon which we built a health center and a school. The school has about 30 children there. So because of the fact that we were willing to put our money where our mouth
What's
was,
the name of the school?
the government saw it's called the Bojang Tamba School of Excellence. It's in a little town called Lamin. It was an area where there was no primary school education. All the children started school from the age of 14. We built primary school in that area. And now we have a whole town that has grown up around that school. It's been there for about 8 years now. And so, yes, in that instance, governments have are very willing and happy to help, because they've seen that you're not the usual European sort of come in, get some land, put a little hotel up, and then you just start taking money out of the country. And you're not putting anything in. So it's definitely possible to do that. And they're looking for black people from outside the diaspora to come back home and start building up. Because right now, the thing that you talk about in your Gentrified movie is happening right there in Gambia too.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, there are parts of the coastline where there's parts of the coast that local people can't go. So if you're a local, if I go there with a local person, they would let me in because they could see me and tell that I'm not local. But the Gambian, they told them to stay outside. They won't let him in. So already that whole kind of zoning off of areas is happening to local people, and they're wondering what is going on. There are times where I've been into a bank, for example, and I've seen an Indian man try and walk to the front of the queue because he thinks I'm just another African. And because of my accent, and I can tell him to move his so on and so forth and get to the back of the queue, the rest of the line are very pleased that there's someone who looks like them but will not take that kind of colonial mindset. So
well, okay, let's slow down, pump the brakes here. Why are the native Africans not putting his ass in his place? Why do they have to wait for you to say something? Why are they not doing it?
I asked the same question myself, and I can't answer it. I haven't found a good enough answer. But it feels like as though, and so this is just my own conjecture, it feels like as though they have been really told that white is right, that black is bad, that we need to get to the back of the queue figuratively and actually, in reality as well. So that is what I've seen from them. And so when they see brothers who've come over from America and they see the swag that you lot come with, they love it. They copy it. They start learning that actually their place is at a place at the front. That's not all Gambians. That's some. I won't say that's all, because some of them are real bossy too. But that is what I've seen.
Well, I definitely think it's something that we want to check into there. I would like to get some more information about it. Like I say, I haven't heard anything positive that ever actually occurred from it. I really haven't. The few people that I did talk to, it wasn't very good stories, in all honesty. But here's what I want you to do, okay? I'll say this live on the air, because there are black people who are willing to do that kind of thing, but nobody is going to go off and spend a large amount of money on speculation and something that they can't verify. So what I want for you to do, you got my inbox. I want you to send me the woman from Queens, send me her information, and let her know we want to sit down and talk with her about it. And if things work out, if we're able to get some reliable information that we're able to validate here, I want to see about you and me getting together on something.
Sounds good, bro.
Simple as that.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, I'll get back to you.
Definitely do that. Get in touch with me. Let's find out what's going on. And if this is legitimate, and if this is something I can verify, because number one thing here, black people will invest and will spend their money, but the problem is a lot of the information, it's not even necessarily people are trying to lie to them, is that the information is not reliable. And before I can let people have more details on what you're saying, I want to make sure the information's reliable first, because everything I've seen up until now has not been. But if you're able to deliver on that, I've got some people who want to talk to you.
Okay.
We'll be waiting.
Consider it done. I'll get back to you with action. Good. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate you speaking with me.
Black First, brother, as always. Like I say, definitely you've got the Russians, the Europeans, the Chinese scrambling all over Africa, grabbing up everything that they can. There definitely need to be black folk to do that. And there is a coon culture in Africa. And what they need are some real Africans to set foot on the land who ain't buck dancing and bowing down and kowtowing and kissing ass to non-Africans. They need to see an example. And your twerkers and your bastard baby makers were born and raised to kiss white folks' asses. So that's why they don't go over there and they can't be listened to. And they're emulating hoes and hoe behavior. Nicki Minaj is a slave to white folk. They need some Coretta Scott Kings and some Assata Shakurs, and they need some real black people to show them how it's done. I wish I would be standing in a line somewhere and some light-skinned Asian decides, oh, he's walking past everybody. I'd hate to have a WWE moment at the bank. But we have to set the standard, and there's only so much we can do half a world away. There's only so much we can do. We can be a better example, but eventually at some point we're going to have to put major boots on the ground, and we are going to have the laws that say something very similar. Marcus Garvey said it, and it is true today. The 4 words, Africa for the Africans. And in Roland Martin's buck dancing, white ass kissing world, Africans don't have to be black. In his world, Charlize Theron and Angelina Jolie are Africans. In Roland Martin's world, Hillary Clinton is an African. And we have to make sure there's no safe haven for coonery anywhere. Anywhere. No, in the chat room, stop saying dumb things. Ghana and Senegal are not the best options until we can prove that they are. And the bottom line is that none of these places are proven. None, absolutely none. So stop saying that. None of these places are proven. Not a single one. You're sitting in your apartment in Poughkeepsie, Iowa, talking about a place you've never been, never seen, don't know the lay of the land, don't know the politics of, haven't talked to any of the locals to see how you fit in the environment. Talking about what the best option is. You got white folk running wild over there, and you're daydreaming. None of these places, none of them have expressed a right of return to Africans. None. If you are Jewish, Israel has a solid right to return. All you have to do is prove that you're Jewish and you can go to Israel. No questions asked, no strings attached. Here's some land. Get started. No place, none, nowhere on African soil has a solid right of return to Africans. None, not a one of them has a program of a right to return. I can show you places like in South Africa where coon niggas have animosity towards Africans from America. Primarily because they know that all of you saw that movie Malcolm X. Understand something, that was a movie. Africans ain't really big on Africans standing up for being black. Ask Julius Malema. Ask Julius Malema how eager the average South African black person is to stand up against the Boers, the Dutch descendants, the British descendants. Ask him how eager they are. Folks talking nonsense in a chat room of a place you haven't been and people you haven't talked to. But you do not know the politics of that area. If they had animosity toward white colonizers like that, those folk wouldn't be running wild all over the damn place. Ghana is not a pro-black enclave. And let me just say this straight out like it is. Fidel Castro and Cuba were more pro-black than South Africa is. I said that and I'll stand on it. Fidel Castro expressed more pro-blackness in Cuba than you have witnessed out of South Africa since Fidel took over in Cuba. And I dare anyone to show me otherwise. You had Black Panthers who were able to get safe haven in Cuba. Why didn't they go to Africa? They didn't go to Africa because you all need to face the reality. Africa is a coon continent. You just need to face that truth. If you're ever gonna fix it, you gotta understand what the problem is. Africa is a coon continent. It's a continent of coons, where the females are looking for a white man, and the black males are trying to get to England because there are more white women there. But don't try to sell us on some garbage that there's some safe haven in Africa that's just chomping at the bit and waiting for us to show up. To welcome us with open arms. The hell they are. We like to sit and daydream about an Africa that doesn't exist. It is one that must be built. And quite frankly put, it is not just one that must be built, it is one that must be conquered. Dr. John Henrik Clarke laid down his life for decades to psychologically prepare us for the fact that everything that we get out of Africa, Africa was taken by force. And everything that we're going to get out of Africa will have to be retaken by force. You are going to have to show up with your financial resources and your psychological resources, which is a black first mentality. And you will have to come there and say Africa for the Africans. African. And then you will have to enforce it. You will have to go from village to village and make it very clear that the era of the coon is over. And that you will enforce it. You are going to have to make it clear to them that the era of African for the African has begun. And everyone who does not believe in this must leave. No, you must not leave the village, you must leave the continent. You cannot stay. If your dream is to bow down and ass kiss, then we're going to put you on the first thing with wings to England. And you can do all the ass smooching over there that you desire, but you can't stay here. Africa is a place where Africans will build their power. And as Dr. John Henry Clarke said to us so eloquently, I don't share power any more than I would share my wife. And this idea that the safe havens are places where we're going to share power with other people who are determined to keep us out, let's be very, very clear. The reason why there is no African right to return is because Africans have thrown open the doors to the Chinese. They've thrown open the doors to the Russian. They've thrown open the doors to the Indian. They haven't thrown open the doors to the Africans of the diaspora. So let's stop the damn lying. They haven't thrown open any doors for us. I can show you some walls that they put up. And when you do talk to them about white racism, have you heard some of the responses that you get? I've talked to dozens of Africans about white racism. The only thing that Africans want to talk about is problems with other African tribes, but they don't want to discuss white racism. That they don't want to discuss. You go to any of these pages, Biafra and the rest of them, they don't want to discuss white racism. They want to discuss their problems with other black Africans. They don't want to discuss the white colonialists, the Russian colonialists, the Chinese colonialists. They don't want to talk about that. They'll go all in all day long about black folk in this tribe and black folk in that tribe. But they don't want to say a word about the whites. Understand when someone's mind has been colonized and they see themselves as a white person. You and I are talking about blackness and they're like, no, I got more in common with this French fella. I got more in common with this Portuguese fella. I got more in common with this German fella than I do with you. I mean, yeah, your skin's the same color as mine and your lips are the same thickness as mine and your nose is broad like mine, but I got more in common with Matthew McConaughey. He's more my kind of people. Stop talking this garbage. Any black man who has talked to an African female on American soil knows for a fact that they came over here looking for a white man to lay up with, and that's the damn truth. And if I get in trouble for telling the truth, so be it. But you all know that's the damn truth. All of you. You can't find a African female straight off the continent of Africa who ended up in America who does not look down her nose at black men. It doesn't matter what the black man does, doesn't matter how much money he makes. She considers the only thing of status a white man. Now you can say whatever the hell you want to, that's just straight up reality. That's just real. And any black man who has met a black woman who has ended up on American soil straight from Africa, not second generation, she's straight from Africa, you already know what kind of attitude you're going to run into. All of us have seen it. All of us have met it. And that's why you can't name 2 African women that you know who are pro-black minded actually living in America. You can't name them. Now, you might be able to find some Caribbean females. You might get some females from the Caribbean. But as far as straight from Nigeria, straight from Ghana, straight from Niger, you're not going to happen. It's not happening. Talking about Senegal. Senegal is one of the hot spots for interracial dating with black bedwenches looking for white men. talking about Senegal. Senegal is one of the hot spots for European males looking for some black sex to go run up in. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I saying too much about Senegal? Am I saying too much? You are not going to get citizenship to Africa. You must domesticate it. You are going to have to walk over there with your resources and your mindset and the physical ability to defend it. Thank you, Second Amendment. And then you will be able to build an African enclave. And it must be very clearly stated that this land is for the African and that the rules governing it are for Africans. Everyone else can put their money in, but you have no say. Because I can put money into China, but as a black person, I have no say. So you're not going to sit here and tell me that the rules are going to be any different. If you are not a black African, you have no say. Period. I go to America, I have no say. I go to England, I have no say. I go to Norway, I might get killed. I have no say. Same thing in Australia. Same thing in Russia. Same thing in China. Well, guess what? It's going to be the same damn thing in Africa. You'll have no say. None. So if we're going to fix that situation, we need to be honest about that situation. If you go to England, ironically enough, for the caller who called in here from Mali, black males from the Caribbean can't wait to get their asses to England because they think of themselves as Brits. You're from Jamaica. You're from the Virgin Islands. And he black as you and me, and he thinks he's British. First thing he does is get off the plane. Where the white women at? I am here to validate. He swears that racism doesn't exist, but he's desperate to get his hands on a white woman so that he can validate that he's equal. That's the mindset that you have coming out of Africa. Plenty of Nigerians who leave Africa and go to England, first order of business, find some white woman. There's got to be one in a homeless shelter he can go liberate. So when you get to Africa and you find out that that's what's waiting on you, let me know if you're ready for it. Because I'm not so sure you are. And a lot of black folk have a lot of misconceptions. You think just because there's a bunch of black folk on the African continent that they think of themselves as black, and you need to understand, no, they don't. If they did, let me ask you all one simple question. If the average African in Africa saw himself as being in a bad situation and that the whole continent was being colonized and he's being pushed the hell off of the earth, why is it that Africans in Africa are not lighting up our inboxes, trying to get together and work with us and tell us what the lay of the land is there so that we can get that thing straightened out? Why is it that your inboxes are not filled with African men and women trying to tell us, hey, we need to get together on this. This is the lay of the land. This is the situation. They're driving us out over here. We're all we got. Show me where you can find this. Show me the African groups online. Now that you have this global communications network, show me the Africans that are trying to contact us. Because tonight I was talking to a black man from Britain. I wasn't talking to an African in Africa, much less from Africa. So we got a bunch of black folk outside of Africa talking about how bad the situation is in Africa, but you don't have any Africans contacting us saying, yeah, the situation is awful. We need as much help as we can get. We need reinforcements from the diaspora. Now you let a white man talk about going over there and his inbox will fill up. with some African bed whore who will be saying in broken English, "You come to Africa, me meet you. Come see my family." But for black people, there is no red carpet. I'm saying this tonight, and this is going to be brutal, hard reality for a lot of you. But you've been lied to. And all you got to do is open up your damn Facebook account and see you've been lied to. You can go find all of these groups of Africans online, but none of them saying anything to you. They're not reaching out to you. They're not talking to you. They're talking to white folk, and they're talking to each other about African dumb nigga talk, but they're not talking to Africans in America about how we can establish an African power base in Africa. Now the white Indians stood up here and walked past them in the bank. Oh, that's God walking. With other black folk, a black person from the diaspora, I wish you would walk past them. Now, that's the thing we didn't get to talk to and the brother on the phone. I wish that one of us from America would walk past them, because they'll have you believe, oh, we're so meepish and sheepish, we're so scared, we don't stand up to nobody. You walk your black ass past them and see what they do. You're standing in line at the bank and you just walk past the rest of them black folk there in Africa. See how they treat you if you try that. Now, they'll let the white Indian get away with that, but you try it and you'll find out how shy they aren't. Oh, they'll get up in your face real quick. This is what I mean by coon continent. And if we're going to go there, we have to go there understanding you are on enemy turf. Psychologically. You got the whites who've colonized it, and you've got the Africans. You've got the land that the whites have colonized, and you've got the Africans' minds that the whites have colonized. The whites have colonized both the land and the minds of Africans. And you have to understand that before you walk in. Now, he mentioned about my documentary, Gentrified, Ethnic Cleansing American Style. You need to be at our website right now, gentrifiedmovie.com. That's gentrifiedmovie.com. Better yet, go to our main website, Black Channel Films, where you can find 7 a.m. and Gentrified and find out what he was talking about. Go ahead and rent that, because I've got black folk who were talking to me today about how the situation in D.C. has changed since they last been there. And these are microcosms for what you're going to find over there. If you can't take a block in D.C., what the hell makes you